Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking what looks like a massive geopolitical tech event and completely flipping it into a practical, step-by-step architectural survival guide for data engineers. Look, an event just shook the AI landscape and totally redefined how we have to handle pipeline dependencies. So grab your notes because we are getting highly tactical today. Okay, let's dive right into this. This quote by Samuel Williams perfectly frames the reality of the recent Anthropic global shutdown. When the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security ordered Anthropic to cut off Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for every U.S. foreign national on Earth, well, Anthropic had to comply the only way it actually could, a global kill switch. Most people out there are looking at this as just a geopolitical story, but honestly, that's a huge mistake. The real message here is for anyone who builds or governs data pipelines. The exposure you face isn't just some abstract legal compliance issue, it is a fundamental architectural flaw, and it's already sitting right there in your production pipelines. 72 hours. That is literally exactly how long Claude Fable 5 was live. The early reviews were stellar, the use cases were completely game-changing, and teams were rapidly building it into their stacks. And then, production pipelines everywhere just simply halted. A closed frontier API is now a dependency that a government you don't even answer to can revoke without any notice whatsoever. The sheer suddenness of this failure is exactly why we need to rethink our architectures immediately. So here is our blueprint for this explainer to get your systems resilient. 1. The global kill switch. 2. The deemed export doctrine. 3. Why tail risk is baseline. 4. The data engineer's checklist. And finally, 5. The new core competency. Section 1. The global kill switch. What actually happened? All right, so 3 distinct threads basically converged at warp speed here. On day 1, Fable 5 goes live. By day 2, researchers at Amazon, who are an Anthropic investor and cloud rival, reportedly flagged that Fable 5's guardrails could be jailbroken to expose zero-day cyber capabilities at scale. Meanwhile, the White House had already forced Anthropic to revoke access for a South Korean telecom partner due to structural ties with Chinese entities, and there was already pre-existing friction with the Pentagon over Anthropic's refusal of domestic surveillance use cases. All of this momentum resulted in the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security mandating compliance by day 3. And because Anthropic obviously couldn't verify the citizenship of hundreds of millions of users instantly, pulling the plug entirely was literally their only option. Section 2. The deemed export doctrine. The machinery of the shutdown. So the crucial point here is this specific definition. Under EAR Section 734.13, a query sent over an API is treated as a deemed export. What this means is the API interaction itself is legally classified as a release of controlled technology to the user's country of citizenship. Think about that for a second. It's a novel, pretty aggressive, and currently untested reading of the law, but the doctrine is very real in its effects today. It treats a straightforward, everyday API call exactly like the export of physical defense technology. And the stakes here are absolutely massive. Civil penalties for violations run up to roughly $300,000 per violation, or twice the transaction value. And that's with potential criminal exposure layered on top of that. Safe to say that is going to blow past your monthly AWS budget pretty fast, right? Plus, the trigger is based on the person's citizenship, not their physical location. An engineer sitting in your London or Bangalore office is treated exactly like an adversary nation one at enforcement. This entirely transforms a basic API request into a critical engineering compliance issue. Section 3. Why tail risk is baseline. Dismantling the steelman. Now, it's super tempting to believe the myth on the left, that this was just a freak, once-in-a-cycle convergence of a new model, a jailbreak, and a preloaded political grievance. Architects might even argue that tearing down your whole stack for a tail risk is malpractice, especially when hosting open-weight models yourself costs so much in GPUs and safety tuning. But we really need to look at the reality on the right. This directive established a doctrine, and doctrines are totally reusable. Any U.S. frontier capability hosted on major clouds can be revoked by executive order without any migration window whatsoever. Therefore, this is not a tail risk anymore. It is a baseline architectural risk. Your exposure travels globally with every single foreign national in your value chain. Furthermore, that whole argument that open weights are just too burdensome, that's weakening incredibly fast. Capable open weight options exist right now for almost every workload out there. We're talking GLN 5.2, DeepSeek, QN, Kimi. Now, the takeaway here is not that you must self-host absolutely everything. The point is that you simply cannot afford to be unable to self-host. If your architecture is entirely hard-coded to a single proprietary endpoint, you are deeply, deeply vulnerable. Section 4, the data engineer's checklist, building for survival. All right, here are the 4 critical steps you need to take right now to convert a fatal dependency into graceful degradation. 1. Implement a model routing gateway. 2. Instrument for silent failure. 3. Resolve data retention collisions. And 4. Write a technology control plan. Let's move to the next slide and actually see how this builds into a robust strategy. And this brilliantly illustrates the solution. Seriously, you have got to stop calling proprietary APIs directly from your application code. It's a trap. Instead, you put a model routing gateway in front of every single pipeline. Under this routing logic, routine work with low to medium reasoning depth, that gets routed to a self-hosted open-weight model like Qwen 3.6. Highly regulated requests go straight to a sovereign enclave. And then you reserve those proprietary frontier API calls strictly for complex, high-depth needs. By doing things this way, if a frontier model suddenly becomes unavailable, it simply triggers a fallback path instead of causing a total, full system outage. Moving to step 2, this is all about observability. We are all pretty used to hard failures, right? Clean API errors, HTTP 500s, full outages. But you now need to instrument for silent failure. Providers might use prompt modifications, steering vectors, or parameter-efficient fine-tuning to silently degrade a model's output without ever actually returning an error code. And for an automated data pipeline, a capability that quietly gets worse is way more dangerous than one that just fails loudly. You need to add output quality evals and cost per call monitoring immediately, because, trust me, your provider will not warrant you when they change the model out from under you. Step 3, you need to resolve data retention collisions before procurement signs absolutely anything. When Fable 5 launched, its terms reportedly mandated a 30-day traffic retention across multiple platforms. This instantly collided with the zero data retention and GDPR commitments that companies made to their own customers. Microsoft reportedly even blocked their own internal use over this exact issue. If you're handling personal or regulated data, relying on an external provider isn't just risky anymore. Running open weights in a sovereign enclave is often literally the only defensible legal position you can take. Finally, step 4. Write the technology control plan and the AI dependency audit. You've got to map every single AI integration in your stack. And yes, that includes the shadow AI that developers might be secretly using on personal accounts. Classify everything by data logging rules, define specific access requirements based on citizenship and role, and then clearly document the controls that isolate restricted models from unauthorized personnel. Look, I know writing governance docs isn't exactly why you got into data engineering in the first place, but this technology control plan is the essential new artifact for any modern data team. Section 5. The new core competency. Your job has changed. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. For a decade, a data engineer's job was really just to make capability flow. But now your job is to make that capability survivable. Multi-model abstraction, provider-agnostic routing, and rigorous dependency governance are absolutely no longer just nice-to-haves. They are core competencies, for sure. The engineers who can confidently answer, what happens to this pipeline when the model goes dark, will be the ones writing the architecture decisions for everyone else. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Now go out there and audit those pipelines.